Hello, everyone, and welcome to the July 2025 Integration Downunder. Myself, along with the rest of the MVPs, are anxiously waiting an email that's supposed to come sometime tonight or early tomorrow morning about being renewed, but we'll see about that. So today we've got our organizers, Martin, Dan, Mick, Wagner, and myself. And today we're going to have Wagner talking about the latest news from Integrate. Dan and I were lucky enough to get to go to Integrate and present. So this will be good to get a recap of all that from Integrate. So let me, without any other questions, I will add Wagner to the stage, and it's all yours. And I will just make it to where it's just the presentation.
Okay, thanks, Bill. So today we're going to feels like a little bit of a PSA, right? There is a lot of things that we announced during Integrate, so I try to put in all of them together and go through a rapid fire with every one of the new features in Logic Apps that we announced. So we're not going to be doing any demos here. We're just going to be talking about the features. So Dan and Bill, feel free to jump in at any time and ask questions or get questions from the audience if there is any. But let's start with a little bit of a agenda. So we're going to be talking about 5 areas where we made some announcements, and some of those might have come just like at the end with build, but most of those were during Integrate. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the developer tools updates and some of the frameworks that we started to create or update. We're going to spend some time talking about Agent Loop, right? That is some of the latest AI capabilities that we have available in Logic Apps. We're going to talk about an evolution of templates that is now organizational templates, which is going to allow you to bring your own templates inside your environment. Talking about monitoring and B2B capabilities, and finally about the hybrid platform. So let's start with developer tool updates. Like from an updates point of view, the first one is automated test framework. So we've been working and trying to get an alternative way to the automate tests for Logic Apps for some time. There was some open source components, and mid last year, late last year, we decided to focus on putting this together from a product group point of view, because we thought that is something that was super important for developer quality, right? But I think the first thing that we needed to talk when we're talking about Logic Apps is what is a Logic Apps unit test? And in this case, for us, Logic Apps unit test is a way for you to test workflow scenarios. So the unit of test here is still your whole workflow, but a path inside of your workflow, right? So in the example that I have here, imagine that depending on the data that you pass to that workflow, you're going to go through the positive path in your condition, and because of that, you're going to complete the message at the end, or you go to the negative path, and you also can complete the message, or you have an error when you call in the API and wanted to make sure that the abandon is generating the error that we expect. So each one of those is a scenario that you can test, which means there is one unit test that you could create. In order for you to do that, you need to have a control execution. You needed to get the things that are outside of Logic Apps, in this case, the trigger, the calls to the external workflows, the calls to the external APIs, and how the service bus behaves in a controlled way, right? So for that, we giving you the ability to decouple testing from those end systems connectivities with the introductions of mock. And we give you the ability to verify that logic, one by running that workflow with the mocks programmatically inside a unit test project, but to be able to assert against any of the items of the workflow. So we got two ways to create those unit tests, right? And one of them, or the simplest way that you have, is if you already did a pass of debugging and you already have a scenario that is ready for you to automate and continue testing, that is where you should be able to create a unit test from an existing run. So you created your workflow, you did some debugging locally, you have a case where you already have data for all those external components. We can use that and create a unit test from that. Okay? But we know that in some other cases, you're not able to create that unit test directly from a debugging process, either because one, you don't have the right data on the external systems to test, or it's too costly to do that. So we also allow you to create a unit test directly from a definition. And when you do that, then you should be able to programmatically mock all those dependencies that you might have from external systems. When you create those unit tests, what we're going to get is a tests project. So you're going to have one test solution for each workspace. Inside that workspace, you're going to have one logic apps, one project per logic app. So if your workspace have more than one logic apps project inside, you're going to have one CS project for each one of those logic apps. Then we create one folder for each one of your workflows. And inside that folder, that's where you're going to be creating the unit test code. Right? So inside that, we're going to have a couple of components. The first one is what we call the mock outputs. So for you to be able to programmatically creating mocks or to alter mocks, even if you receive it from a run, you would need to understand what is the format of the outputs that are coming from those connectors, right? And you do that by generating mocks for each one of those connectors that are specific for your workflow. And the reason why we're doing that specifically for your workflow is because you can have actions like dataverse list records, right? This one, it depends on the inputs of your workflow to actually define what is the outputs that you're going to have. If you select an accounts entity, you're going to have a set of outputs. If you select a contacts entity, you're going to have a different set of outputs. So instead of creating one mock output that is generic for the whole project, we apply that to the logic app, to the workflow scope, allowing you to have multiple of those mocks for different cases of and workflows. The next thing that we have here is a test settings.config. And this test settings is going to be the glue between your workflow, your unit test project, and your actual Logic Apps project, right? Inside the test settings.config, you'll find all the references for your Logic Apps project to guarantee that when you're running this inside of the unit test execution, you actually have the right reference to the latest version of your workflow, and also references to your parameters files, to your connections.json, and all that kind of stuff that might be required when you're loading. And if you wanted to actually get different values from that, from the values that are available in the Logic Apps folder, you can just change the testing settings to point it to different locations. The last thing that you have is actually the workflow test folder, when you're going to have either one or two files. When you're creating from a run, you're going to have your CS file that is actually your test class with all the methods and everything that you need for that, and a mock.json file, which is the file that give you that execution for all the mock outputs that are required. If you're creating it from a definition, then by default you don't have that mock.json. You're only going to have a C# file. You can programmatically create all this this mocking. Automated testing framework is now in GA. So we announced a GA for that during Integrate. That means that on the latest version of the VS Code extension and on the latest version and with the latest version of the bundles, you should be able to start using that. I highly recommend you to start looking into that and see how it can improve quality of the unit tests. Oh, sorry, quality of your workflows using the unit tests.
Quick
and
question.
providing feedback of things that might be not working for you or can be improved.
Quick question for you.
Yes.
How do I run the unit tests when I'm doing like a build
So
in DevOps?
one of the things that we're doing after that is doing one last cleanup in the code, so it doesn't depend of the local settings. Once you have that, you can simply do a .NET test inside of it, like creating one step on your pipeline for a .NET test. Or
Okay.
if you're running on a Windows, if you're running that step on a Windows image, you should be able to use the VS test task. We're going to be, as soon as we do this last push, I'm going to be pushing a blog post around that, Bill. But it's going to be super simple. It's as simple as running .NET test.
Okay, very good.
Mm-hmm. Next thing that I'll be talking here is some latest updates on custom code. We know that custom code for .NET Framework has been GA for a while, right? On Integrate last year, maybe a little bit later than that, we introduced the ability to create custom code for .NET 8. So with the latest updates, we did a couple of things. Some of them was generic, help you with the whole process, right? So on this example here, we can see that we included the ability for you to add a function project to an existing workspace. So if you already have a workspace with a Logic Apps and later on you wanted a custom code project, you don't have to go and create a whole new workspace for that and then trying to move things around. Now you're able to just add that custom code project. The same way that you could add a Logic Apps or Rules Engine project. The other thing that we did it from a UX point of view is doing some improvements where inside a project you can create a new function and you can build that function with a right click, right? So you don't have now to go to terminal and try to do that. On top of this Logic Apps project is also a C# is now connected to C# Dev Kit. So if you're familiar with C# Dev Kit, you're going to have underneath here a Solution Explorer where you can see that Solution Explorer. You can right click and build, rebuild, clean, do a whole lot of other things. The last thing that we did that is from generically to improve the experience is you are now able to just do a debug of your logic apps and your custom code in one go with one click. So before you would have to start the logic app, then attach that to the debugger, you start the functions and attach that to the debugger. Now we make it as simple as if you do an F5 on the latest versions, it's going to be running that automatically. Then on .NET 8, we make some improvements as well. Like one of the biggest feedbacks that we get from .NET 8 was, I really like the idea of writing code with .NET, but I wanted to bring my packages, or I wanted to bring packages that are used by the extension, and I don't want it to have conflicts with that, right? So now you're able to bring your own packages, any version that you want, and is not going to clash with the extension. There is only 3 packages that, even if you put the package that is going to overwrite, and it's super easy to explain why. One is the workflow extensions SDK, right? Because that one is we are depending on that, and we needed to control. The other one is one related to dependency injection, and the last one is one related to logger, right? So apart from those 3, anything else that you bring, we're going to honor your package references and not going to change that, because we separating where you run that .NET 8 code from where you run in our code. The other thing that we're doing is bringing now the ability to do dependency injection. So you're going to need 2 things for that to work. The first one is you're going to need to create a startup configuration class. And if you do that, you create that startup configuration, you register your singletons for the items that you needed to bring. And on the code, when you start in the function, you should also be just start the code. It's not showing here on the item, but you'll be able to like just inject that on the sample. On the blog post that I have on the next slide, you should be able to see how that can be implemented. But those were probably the top 2 feedbacks that you had from customers that was making .NET 8 harder to use. And I think with those 2, we get into a position where people can start taking more advantage of that. And now custom code for that .NET 8 is also in GA, right? So you can starting to take advantage of that without worried about is in preview, is going to change a lot or anything like that. If you wanted to know a little bit more, you can go to this link, or just use the QR code. Any questions on that one, Bill?
No, I don't have any questions yet.
Mm-hmm. Anything from you, Dan?
No, not at this point.
Cool. So next item is something that we started to invest, and is early days. So it's good to start looking into that now, because you should be able to influence. So we come in with the one of the feedbacks. Again, a lot of feedbacks from customers was, I love logic apps. I love the idea of connectors. I love the idea of the operational capabilities, but I have a list of developers that are super used to code, and they would prefer to implement those workflows, implement those integrations with code. Or I have logic apps or workflows that started to be so complex that I would make my life easier if I would be able to break it down in components that is easier to do in code than doing in a whole lot of different sub workflows. So those were the cases that we hear from Logic Apps customers. And there is also a lot of customers today that are using Logic, that are using integration, that are creating integration applications, knowingly or not, right? Any time that you go and needed to connect to third-party systems and do routing, in the end, you're doing integration. And they don't even start evaluating Logic Apps because they prefer to work with code. So Codeful Workflow is an answer for those cases. It's a new way to alter workflows in Logic Apps Standard, right? That is based on the .NET framework and the Durable Task framework. So you will be having a very familiar coding experience using a framework that is there for some time, using a durable orchestrator framework that is also already there for some time. But on top of that, having access to the connector ecosystem that we have through an SDK. With that, that means that you actually have access to not just the actions, but also all the triggers that we have available, right? And we're not trying to recreate a new SKU here. You would be able, this is going to be running on the same Logic Apps infrastructure that you have today. You should be able to combine Codeful and visual workflows or declarative workflows in the same application. You should be able to visualize them inside the application in a similar way. So the idea of the Codeful Workflows is actually bringing a new authoring experience for those customers where they're starting to find cliffs with just the visual representation of Logic Apps. So this is right now in private preview, right? If you go to that blog, you will have a video there that shows an early peek of the experience. We talk a little bit more about some of those concepts, and you have a form that will allow you to join the private preview. We already full blown into private preview. Already have more than 50 people running private preview today. So if you're interested, just join that.
I should be able to start on the private preview this weekend.
Awesome. Looking forward to all the feedback.
Yeah, I just got a new laptop delivered today.
So last one, I think on the developer tools is some of the improvements on the data mapper. So the data mapper, we have a public preview of this data mapper refresh, right? We receive a lot of feedback from the people using that, developers and the customers, that they wanted a visual tool. They wanted to use a visual way to implement implement maps. But the version that we put the first version of that mapping, the experience was not what they expected, right? And it could become quite complex quite fast. So we took that feedback in consideration. We redesigned that interface to something that is a bit more common in industry standard. So things that you'd be able to use. But when doing that, we not just redesigned the interface, we improved the performance. So you don't have like a lag experience or a hard experience when you implementing the maps, especially on those complex maps. The other thing that we did is we spent a lot of time in creating functions for some of those advanced scenarios, like aggregation, access to siblings and parent nodes across loops, and things like that. We also allow you to create custom XPath and XSLT support as custom functions, so you could go and use that. And this is really close to GA. We just like closing some of the last items around supportability and some of the edge cases that customers found. So expect that to be GA really soon. And if you wanted to take a look at how to implement this, you can go to aka.ms/datamapper refresh, and you're going to get that version available. So you should be able to get that available in any version of the latest version of the VS Code. You don't need a special physics for that, but there is a setting that you have to toggle to move from the V1 that is GA to this one that is in public preview. So that closes the whole developer tools. So let's change tack a little bit and talk about Agent Loop. So what Agent Loop is a way for you to build autonomous or conversational agents inside logic apps, combining non-deterministic steps with deterministic steps, right? And we know that from the experience that we started to have when looking at this problem, we saw that the process of creating an agent, most of the cases, is really close to a workflow, right? So we introduces that new capability in Logic Apps Standard that allow you to define an agent inside a Logic Apps workflow, allow you to bring your own model, to define your system prompt, right? To bring tools or a knowledge base, and define the steps that are required for those agents to run, and also calling other agents. So you can do like single agent or multi-agents on this. One of the things that is important on that experience is that you are able to include human in the loop, right? So depending on the type of the agent that you're creating, you can hand off the final decision for a human using any of the channels that you would comfortable. Like you can send it to Teams, you could send it to email, wait for the notification to come back, and then continue and close the loop on that. All of this is built on semantic kernels, so we're not trying to reinvent the wheel, right? This is more an interface using the same kind of technology that Microsoft is already working and improving every day around the agentic applications. Any questions on this one?
No, not at the moment.
So if you're interested on that, we have a lot of content on this. It's right now in public preview, so you should be able to use it. Is really close to the getting to GA. In here we have like a blog explaining in depth what is the agent loops, how it works, and what makes it tick. We also have a laundry list of probably 6 or 7 different demos, anything from operational, customer interaction, writer agents, right? There is like a whole different set of industry of those demos. And one of the things that we did probably 2 weeks ago, so it's quite new, is a workshop inside of our Logic Apps Labs, where you can go step by step and create an agent. Like on this one is like a support agent scenario, but you can create step by step and understanding how to implement the agent, how to include tools, and all those things. So you should be able to use that to get a deep dive on what is an agent using this new component that is the agent loop. So again, now that a change of tack, let's talk a little bit about organizational templates. And you're going to see a recurring theme here, right? Like we receive a lot of feedback from customers when we put the Logic Apps standard templates out, that they love the idea of templates, and they like that this is open source, that you can actually contribute. But if I actually creating templates to accelerate my organization, I want those templates to look like my organization rules, right? Naming conventions, how I do my exception management, what kind of components are by default I'm connecting, all that kind of stuff. So this is where we come in with the idea of organizational templates. So organizational templates allow you to bring your own best practice, right? Connect to your custom APIs and systems if you wanted to, and keep all of that inside your subscriptions. So with that, we give you like an end-to-end UI experience to author and publish those templates. So you can create template, right? Organizational templates is an Azure resource, so you should be able to implement that, create those templates and add it there, and also allow you to have like a full life cycle management on this. You can create that on a draft, then you can push that as in test, and when you're happy with this, you should be able to put it in production mode, right? And if you have something that is actually something that you decided that is good enough to bring it back to the community, you should be able to download that and push that to GitHub templates on the repo. But this functionality for you to be able to download and put on templates also is going to help you, because really soon we're going to be allow you to go through this process on VS Code as well. So we have a QR code for you to find more information about that. Another one, let's talk about monitoring and some of the B2B capabilities that we have available. So the first thing is integration environments is still in public preview, right? But starting to get really close to that. But we did a new update, and on that new update, you'll be able to create alerts for your applications, and you're going to be able to create that either the single alerts or in bulk, right? You can import things that you already have, or you can create it from default, and it's going to also give you a list of a list of things that you already have available if you wanted to bring in. The second thing that we did on this is the ability for you to aggregate health insights. So now we're going to be having a better dashboard about health insights of your application. And finally, the idea of having end-to-end monitoring dashboards with messaging tracing. So you actually can go and see a correlation where it's going through the whole life cycle of that. On the EDI side, right, we enable EDI tracking. So now you should be able to do tracking for your business B2B transactions. This is going to be available as part of the premium integration account, right? And give you like a reliable and really near real-time tracking for your EDI B2B data. So the way that we do that reliably and close to real time is because we're basing that on ADX and some of the Azure workbooks. There is a common question when you're talking about ADX is why we're using ADX versus why you're using App Insights, right? So the biggest difference on those two is that App Insights is created for trending. So because of that, it actually works on sampling. When you, even if you make your sampling 100%, there are cases where if the pipeline is under stress, if your application is actually under stress, it's going to skip telemetry, because from App Insights point of view, it's going to prioritize errors and then sampling of the information outside, right? While on ADX is a lossless pipeline, so we guarantee that any data that we push to that pipeline to go to ADX is going to be committed, which means, and for that kind of things, because you're talking about transactional data and we're talking about end-to-end data, we needed to have that on a lossless pipeline. The good news on that one is that that ADX instance can be the same instance, for example, that you're going to be using for business process tracking. So you don't need to create one for each one of your components. You can have one for your organization or for your integration platform.
I got one
Any
question
questions on
on
that one?
this. I've got one question on this. Is any idea when they're going to get the APIs and Bicep stuff working for the premium account?
I don't have that from the top of my mind yet.
Because
Bill, but I'll follow up with you. Mm-hmm.
I was really looking forward to using this about 2 weeks ago, but all my
without the APIs is going to make your life harder.
All my automated deployments and stuff failed miserably.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I think I already have a thread with you and some of our engineering team.
Yep. So I'm hoping to get back to that next week and just try and spin it up in my test environment and see, because he did send me some API stuff. I just got to try it, but because it costs so much,
I think we have some undocumented one. We don't have that on Bicep yet, and we're going to be documenting that soon, based on that thread that we discussed.
Yep. Good.
While we're stopping for questions, if I could just ask, with the end-to-end tracking, is Event Grid included in the services that you can track?
Sorry, so in here is at this stage is the Logic Apps API and Service Bus. So the way that we'll track in Event Grid would be like the onboarding or inbound or outbound of a Logic App, right? Because that would be the two ways that you either to consume that event or to publish that event.
Right. I was thinking that you could pass off to Event Grid, which would then pass off to another service and know when it got actually sent. But okay. But if you have a Logic App, or I suppose on either side, that might
either a Logic Apps or an APIM, right? Which is usually the two places, or even the Service Bus. So we're not tracking the event being generated on Event Grid, but we have the first three subscribers of that event.
Sure. Okay. Thanks.
So back to that one, business process tracking, right? Is now general available, and the idea of business process tracking is actually, while integration environments and to some extent EDI is really about your technical side, right? Business process tracking is more about your end-to-end business process. So you're able to model your business process, you're able to connect those business process with your technical implementation. So with either inside the same pipeline or across multiple pipelines, and in this case, think about like one or more Logic Apps, right? Having that same reliable data delivery that we talked before, based on Data Explorer. And you should be able to extend that like getting some of that data through Logic Apps templates or through Power BI or Azure Monitor workbooks, right? But we have a also a default interface for you to take a look at those that information and use it. And as part of the DGA, one of the things that we did is enable CI/CD support. So if you're creating business process tracking, we have a process for you to bring those components to source control and deploy as part of your application. And all of that is based on some of the work that you already did it for Logic Apps CI/CD. Finally, and I think that's the last one on our list, is talking a little bit about our hybrid platform. So the first thing that we have is that Logic Apps Hybrid is now generally available, right? So what the hybrid deployment means is it allow you to deploy your standard Logic Apps in a customer managed infrastructure. So that would be a Kubernetes cluster on-prem, in a private cloud, or ours or other public clouds, right? The architecture here that's a very important point, is targeting semi-connected scenarios. What that means is all the processing is local. It stands periods of disconnection, but monitoring and management is still through the Azure portal, right? So you're able to do local processing, you're able to do local storage because we have support for the SQL database as a storage now, and access to your local network, right? Since you can be deployed inside your premises, but you manage all of that from your Azure portal. And that's why we say semi-connected scenarios, because while it's running, even if you disconnected from the cloud, you're not going to be able to manage or verify errors until you are connected again. So the control plane is all hosted in Azure, right? And access that through Azure Arc. So we have a dependency on Azure Arc for that. And the Logic Apps are all deployed into containers right inside the connected environment, which would be a Kubernetes cluster. The billing model for that is 18 cents per vCPU hour, like for each one of the CPUs that we're using. That's going to be the costing model. Any questions on that one?
No, I'm just hoping to find a client sometime that actually has container infrastructure I can run it on.
So as part of that, right, because we needed, there was a couple of things that customers require, and also we needed a solution for messaging on-prem. We have two new connectors that are right now in public preview. We have a connector for Confluent Kafka and a connector for RabbitMQ, right?
Yep.
It's probably the first thing to say here is we love Service Bus. We think that Service Bus from a cloud point of view, it's still the best option for you in terms of the elasticity and being able to deploy that in multiple regions, etc. But if you needed a messaging solution on-prem as part of your implementation, then you have a connector for RabbitMQ so you don't get having that information, right? And those two connectors, both the Confluent Kafka and the RabbitMQ, you're able to connect to on-prem using the Logic Apps hybrid. Or even if you're running the Logic Apps in the cloud, as long as you have VNet integration, you should also be able to access this. And I think this is the last one. Yes. So any questions from you or from any others?
No, I'll put us all back on the screen when Dan comes back. There he is. So,
yeah.
Oh no, that's good because it just brought together a lot of the stuff I heard at Integrate and things like that. I can't wait to play with the codeful workflows because there's a bunch of stuff I'm doing with this EDI stuff that I want to use the EDI connectors, but it's just fiddly in Logic Apps, and it would be easier in C#.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, and you see why no demos, right? There was too many too many announcements to try to fit demos on all of those. We were going to be here for 2.5 days.
But most of the stuff, there is some videos out on YouTube. I know Kent did several of those things, so
we did.
You can go find one.
Yeah, if people is following us on Logic Apps Live, right? We got like some of those and highlighted on Logic Apps Live. And one of the things that we're doing now is when you write in the blog post, we try to embed a little video with the feature, like just the basics of the feature, so people know how it ticks. So there is a lot of videos, that's heaps of videos for Agent Loop. There is some, like probably a 30-minute demo on unit testing. There is a small video on custom code. Sorry, not on custom code, on Codeful. A demo on custom code. All of that is available on Logic Apps Live and on our blogs.
Very good. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So I think in this case, that's us for today.
Yep, I think that is. Hold on, I'll hop back to my slides. So thanks very much. That was good. And everybody, this will be up on the YouTube channel sometime tonight. I just have to go in and do a little bit of work in YouTube for that, but it'll be up on the YouTube Live tonight. And thanks very much, Wagner, for giving us good presentation. And also, if anyone else is interested in presenting, please just reach out. We've got some slots available if you're interested in presenting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a while that I was here, so I was happy to come back.
Yep. Thanks, everyone, and good night.
See you all later.